If you and I were to flash back to 2003 and we were just sitting around with a group of real estate and mortgage professionals and a fortune teller walks in with a brand new crystal ball, absolutely guaranteed to predict the future with 100% accuracy. So we decide to ask her, can you look into the future for us? Let's just say 2011. Tell us what the real estate market is going to look like 8 years from today. Here's what it predicted. I see house prices that are between 10 and 50% less than today's market in 2003. Fixed rate mortgages are going to be at 4.5%. Mortgages will require a 3.5% down payment. Now, how accurate would she have been? Right on the money. With that being said, we would have probably predicted that the market would be on fire. People would be standing in line to buy houses. Listings would have multiple offers and be on the market for hours, not months. A lack of inventory would be the problem, not a surplus of homes on the market. And now let's come back to reality in the real world of 2011. The real estate market is stagnant. How could this be? This was making me crazy. In my 20-plus year career in the real estate and mortgage arena, this made no sense. I wanted to understand why. Now, before I get into my research and my discovery of what I call the 7.5 reasons of why the real estate market is stagnant, I want to first point out a few things that I've learned over the years. Whenever the market is stagnant, it will always rebound from what I call the bottom up. The renter must come into the marketplace first, absorb the inventory of those homes, which will then give confidence and liquidity to the move-up home buyers who are selling that home. Then they will buy the next level up, and that seller will do the same, and the cycle continues. Well, if the renters weren't out in droves buying houses with these perfect conditions that we talked about earlier, this was the main issue causing the bottleneck of the whole market. This is where I decided to devote my time and my energy over the past few months. I needed to understand this from their perspective, using my empathy effect brain. What were they feeling? Here's what I found. For various reasons, some renters were out taking advantage of these conditions, while others were in a holding pattern. They weren't quite ready to buy just yet. When I asked the renters, are you going to be a lifetime renter? They typically would say, oh, I'm going to buy a home. It's just not right now. I think the American dream is alive, but it's just in hibernation today. I believe most are hoping to be a homeowner at some point in time down the road. I believe the market will break somewhere between 5 months and 5 years from now. We just can't predict when. The overall theme of almost everybody who is waiting was the word uncertainty. That probably applies to all decisions made by the consumer today. If they feel certainty, they will release their inhibitions and part with cash to make their purchase. The word uncertainty is such a broad statement, I needed to dive deeper. What were the reasons deep down inside the renter's soul that were causing the lack of motivation? I know logically when you do a side-by-side comparison of renting versus owning, hands down, it makes more sense to buy than it does to rent. What was it? The renter today is smarter than ever before. Why couldn't they see it? Well, here's what I found. The 7.5 reasons of why they are on the sidelines. The first being job insecurity. The renter today feels that if they have any inkling that they might be getting laid off, they tend to back off from buying a home. The uncertainty of the economy combined with an uncertainty of their job keeps them on the sidelines. If they were to get laid off, they would be concerned that they'd be losing their source of income, and it didn't make any sense to venture into the buying arena. The second is lack of a down payment. When you look at the patterns of the 22 to 32-year-old renter today, living paycheck to paycheck is at an all-time high. With this debit card world and direct deposits, I think it's harder than ever to save for anything, let alone a down payment for a house. What we have found is that they need to create a separate account away from their month-to-month money to create an out-of-sight, out-of-mind environment for the savings, similar to the olden days of Christmas club accounts or layaways that our parents used to use. The third is credit scores. Since the tightening of mortgage financing, the requirement to maintain credit scores upwards of 620 is prevalent in today's market. If for some reason the renter's below this, they need a solution and a plan to raise those scores over time. Sometimes we see some of the spouses have had a tough time or have been a little sloppy over the years, driving the scores down, while the other has maintained a very high score. Since we need both incomes to qualify typically, this could hold back a couple today more than ever. The fourth is debt-to-income ratio guidelines. Some folks don't qualify because their debt load is higher than required. This didn't exist back in 2003 because the guidelines were so loose, it didn't matter how high your ratios were. The lending environment always had a workaround to make it fit. I think this is what got a lot of people in trouble. Now, the guidelines are much more common sense today, which will keep enough disposable income to pay your bills on a timely basis and stand the test of time. These tighter guidelines make this a better environment for all. If you have too much debt, maybe you shouldn't buy right now. The fifth is debt-to-income ratio comfort zone. Sometimes there are debts that you pay that don't show up on your credit report. For an example, you may be paying your parents' mortgage payment or have some private tuition expenses that the lender might not see on the credit report. This is where we have seen the renter say, "You might think I can go to 41% of my income for all of my debt, but that's crazy. We just can't afford that." The renter has restricted the guidelines even further to keep some peace of mind. The sixth is misinformation. With the connected society that we are in today, there is so much erroneous information out there, it's starting to become sickening. I believe this is the single largest category that is holding people back. I think it is the main cause of procrastination. From Good Morning America reporting you need 20% down and pristine credit, to Time Magazine talking about rethinking homeownership, you must make sure you get the facts from a trusted source to make sure you are making decisions with the right information. What I found in my research is that sometimes people had the credit scores, the ratios, and the down payment to go out and buy. They just didn't know it. They got bad information from the marketplace. The renter doesn't know who to trust today. The seventh is lack of mobility. What I found is that if there is a potential job transfer on the horizon or an outside chance that they might need to relocate to improve their career, they will put the decision to buy on the back burner. I think the days are gone that you could buy a house, close on it, and then 6 months later cover all of the costs and make a profit. And then 7.5, which is what we call waiting for the bottom. Since no one can predict when each market will hit bottom, I think it's important to stay on top of the pockets in your region and have up-to-date pulse on what's going on as to house values. People are so afraid of making the wrong decision, they make none at all. When you do a side-by-side comparison of renting versus owning, buying becomes an overwhelming decision to be able to go out and do that. But at this moment in time, they might not be ready for the argument of logic due to other fears. They may have an overall uncertainty of the house prices. Why we call it 7.5 and not 8 is, for an example, in Phoenix, Arizona, folks might think that prices haven't hit bottom yet. But in Austin, Texas, houses are already starting to go up. It's important to know what's happening in your market at this moment in time. In conclusion, I believe that this is a scary time out there right now, and it's actually okay to be in a holding pattern until things start to change. But the single most important thing that the renter needs to do is to have a plan, what I call the Path2Buy plan. As I said, if it's 5 months or 5 years of when you decide to explore homeownership, you still need to have a plan. Stay tuned as the information on the Path2Buy program becomes available. I think this will be a start to restore the confidence in the American dream. Thanks for watching.